Liz Davidson with Beyond Solitaire, and I want to welcome you to a Let's Play of Legacy, the Testament of Duke de Crecy. So in the multiplayer version of this game, you actually start as the patriarch or matriarch of an aristocratic family, or a would-be aristocratic family, and you build your family up over the course of 3 different generations. What we're playing today, however, is the solo variant, which is called Testament. So in Testament, rather than move forwards and create a family from a previous generation down through generations, we're starting at the bottom and working our way backwards through our family tree in order to prove that we are deserving of an inheritance. So today we're going to be playing as Natalie, the Buccaneer's daughter, who also somehow manages to be the daughter of Laurent, the jeweler. So either Laurent has a very troubled past that we just don't know about, or Natalie is putting on a little bit of a show about what a tough guy her dad is. Either way, we're basically like a little Dickensian ragamuffin. We have nothing. And we are going to start with our humble parents, but our grandparents remain a mystery. And some of the actions we can take in this game will uncover their identities and the identities of their ancestors. So hopefully what we'll be able to do is prove that our family is related to an aristocrat who has died, and therefore we deserve a cut of a large inheritance. So the way that we prove that we're worthy of the inheritance is by meeting 3 different goals per generation. And I'll show you this on the larger screen so you can see. So you have one of your mother's ancestors was a Spaniard, which means we need to get a Spaniard up in my mom's part of the family tree. One of my grandmothers was a scientist, so somebody needs to be a scientist, one of these fine ladies. And the male ancestor of your father had a title, which basically means that my grandfather or a male ancestor that we trace back here, if we don't get it done in time, needs to have a title. And we can make all of these things happen by taking various actions. So Legacy is basically a worker placement game, but the actions that we can take involve things like who do they know, where we can take friend cards, people to put into our family tree. We can say what title did they have. And I put the titles over here just because this game is a huge space hog. We'll have to readjust a couple times. But I can buy a title. I can buy a contribution to the community with one of my actions. I can place friends into my family tree using the who were they action. I can ask how wealthy were they and get money. I can ask how big was my family. And if I have identified couples, like both the male and the female partners are known, they can actually have children, and I can add aunts, uncles, great aunts, great uncles to the family. So this family can extend based on how many actions I have. So Natalie also has some starting stats. So I have an opening hand of 5 friends, which we're going to talk about. I get 6 gold to start off with, and I have an income of 2. And what that means is that each time we go over an income space, I will get 2 gold or more depending on if I've added members to my family that increase my income. So now that we've done our setup, that was basically stage 1. This has a really handy tracker for turns, and it tells you what to do based on the symbols between steps. So we've revealed our hint cards, as we talked about, and now we're going to be on to stage 1. And that means that we have these 2 actions to take to try to move towards making progress on our family tree and proving the things that we need to prove. So let's have a look at our friends. Some of the things that we need, right, are we need a grandmother who was a scientist. We do have a female ancestor who is a scientist. That could be very useful. We have Maria the Admiral's daughter, who is a Spaniard. And so we also know one of my mother's ancestors was a Spaniard. So it is possible for us to try to put her in. We also know that the male ancestor of my father had a title. So that means that we're going to need to purchase a title, perhaps, for my grandfather up here. And if we can focus on getting those things done this round, we'll be in pretty good stead for future turns. So, why don't we start with the easy part? Let's look at some titles. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to grab this pawn, and I'm going to place it on the what title did they have marker. That's going to enable me to pick up a title for a member of my family. And so when I do that, I am going to take the title of, We're going to go for the cheapo title. We're going to pay 2 and a friend to get the title of Banneret. So when you get titles, sometimes you pay in money, and sometimes you also pay in friends. So we're going to pay 2 back to the bank for our title. I'm also going to have to choose a friend card to lose, because when you, basically when you get a title, some of your friends are like, oh, well, excuse me, I guess we can't be friends anymore. You're just too fancy for me. And then they bail on you. So I'm going to say the person who bails on us is going to be, let's get rid of John, the bankrupted lord. I'm just going to say that because he's a bankrupted lord, he's jealous that we've actually gone up in the world and we now have a title, and his lordliness is no longer so special anymore. So we'll put him to the side in the discard pile. Taking the Banneret card also increased our prestige by 2. So we're going to move our prestige marker up. And what that actually contributes to later in the game is scoring. So after the end of each generation, I'll have a scoring round where I convert my prestige into honor points. So it just helps my score at the end of the game and makes me feel fancy. So we're going to roll with it. All right, so we have one more action before we take our income. Let's see. What would I like to do? Well, I've now fulfilled, by the way, one of my the male ancestor of my father had a title. So this hint card is fulfilled, and I actually pick up another prestige for that. Let's work on another one. One of my grandmothers was a scientist. So since I have Sandra, the inventor's sister, I'm going to go ahead and take an action. Who were they? And we're going to make Sandra, the inventor's sister, let's make her my maternal grandmother. So now Sandra, the inventor's sister, is my grandma. And that means that I'm going to get 1 money for the +1 in the corner. I'm also going to gain one of these light blue pawns. I have to use it before this generation is out. Basically, it is a pawn that would enable me to put another child in the family of a fully identified couple. At this point, I could like maybe give myself an aunt or something. I don't know if I'll even have time to use it, but we'll take it. And that also fulfills another hint card. I know that one of my grandmothers was a scientist. 4, 5. No, just 4. Sorry, getting a little prestige hungry there. So the other thing that's important to note is that this is a good match because Sandra is French and so is Angelique. A lot of these friends cards have different nationalities, and you want to make sure that every child has a nationality that matches that of at least one of their parents. Otherwise, there are some inconsistencies in the story you're telling about your family, and you're going to lose points because it's pretty clear you're stretching things a bit to get at that inheritance. The other thing that Sandra's going to give us is she gives us 2 face-up friend cards. And that means that I can pick 2 friend cards from over here. So I think I want to take Javier, the governor's son. He's a dashing Spaniard. And since I know there's a Spaniard in one of my mother's ancestors, one of them is a Spaniard, and I already have a Spaniard here, and I want lots of matching parents and kids throughout the generations, I'm going to go ahead and take Javier because he and Maria might work nicely together down the line. And let's see, who else might I like to take? We can grab, in case we want some money later, why don't we get Ariane the courtesan, because she's worth +3. She takes our prestige down a little bit, but given that Javier and Vasily the Cossack are a little bit expensive, we can actually use her maybe to offset some future marriages. So those are both of my actions for this first turn. So everything's going to come back, and we are now going to go to the next round. So that's going to be income. My income is 2, so I get to pick up 2 gold. And now we're going to be back on the next step, which is turn 2. So I have 2 more actions, maybe a third, depending on what it is I wanted to do. So I also now know that one of my mother's ancestors was a Spaniard. Javier is expensive, but he's also pretty useful. I'm thinking about making him my grandpa. Because who doesn't want a dashing Spanish diplomat as their grandfather? He is a little expensive, but he would fulfill one of my hints for the turn, and then I could use my other action to do something else. You know what? Let's do it. We're going to go with who were they, I'm going to pay a whopping 5 gold to make Javier my grandfather. So now we also know that one of my mother's ancestors was a Spaniard. 1 more prestige for me. Plus, adding Javier to my family gives me 2 more prestige and an extra income. So he's eventually going to help pay for himself. I would also gain a red pawn, which is for undertaking a mission if I had another Spaniard in my family, but I currently don't. However, I do have Maria the Admiral's daughter. At some point in the future, I can marry her or arrange a marriage with her without using an action if I have another Spaniard in my family. So that means that if I want to make her one of my grandparents, great-grandparents, that shouldn't be an issue. So one thing that's interesting about this particular game, by the way, is we're going to get some massive board creep. Because once you've filled in parts of your family, you add in their parents. So now that I've got these grandparents, I can also add great-grandparents. And I could have added them for Sandra earlier, I just didn't because I wanted to save some space. So now we're showing this previous generation, and we're going to start working on them when we get our hint cards for generation 2. Okay, so I fulfilled all my hint cards. What do I think would be the best thing to do with my other action? Okay, so here's one thing I'm going to do. I have this free action. How big was my family? I'm going to go ahead and play it to get a free brother or sister, like an aunt or uncle I didn't know about from my mom. Okay, so I have like a secret uncle that for some reason we never talked about in our family. So if I need to add another random ancestor with a trait over here, I can. So, hey, random uncle that I've never met. It's great to know that you're out there somewhere. Okay, so I have one more action, and I think what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to socialize. I'm going to go with whom did they know. And even though it's a little bit expensive, I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 gold to take 2 friends. And the reason that I'm going to do that is that you can't just leave 1 friend behind. You have to take the whole lot. So I'm going to take 2 and then take this 3rd friend, and I can just add them to my hand of friends. I can have as many friends as I want. And then I get to replenish the pool of friends. So now if there's someone I need off of the offer, I have more options because I have put more friends potentially in play. And that was that entire turn. So these pawns come back to me. This one goes back over here. It was a 1-use only deal. Now we're going to collect our income, which is 3 now. And then we are going to calculate our honor points so far. So all my prestige that I have, which is currently 7, is going to convert into honor points. So now I was at 0. I now have 7 honor. Well, didn't I just get a little too fancy for my own good? And now we're going to advance into the 2nd generation.